Imagine being in an interview and your interviewer asks, "Can you automate the Amazon website for me?" That's right, it happens. In this series, we will mimic a real interview setup, we'll cover some common automation challenges, and together we'll tackle them head on. I've faced this situation countless times in interviews, and I'm here to make sure you're ready for them too. So make sure you watch this video series till the end because we will be diving deep into WebdriverIO with the latest version, where I will be providing invaluable tips and tricks that will improve your skills as a test automation engineer. Now, all the code from this series is available for you. Check out the link in the description below for that. Before we dive in, a quick note: this series is tailored for those who have worked with WebdriverIO in the past. If you're new or looking for a step-by-step guide, then head over to my academy, sdetunicorns.com, where I've covered a comprehensive course on WebdriverIO just for beginners. Link will be in the description below for that as well. One last thing, if you want to support this channel, then please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends and colleagues. Thank you. So let's take a look at some of the things we will cover in this series. First off, we're going to begin with setting up our WebdriverIO project using the latest version, which is version 8.14, I believe. And then we're going to write our basic test. We're going to see how we can search content on Amazon, verify the search results. We'll also take a look at how to handle auto suggestions. And then we're going to go through the entire cart flow process. We're going to add item to the cart. We're going to update the cart quantity. We're going to verify that the price updated for that particular item and make sure we cover this full end-to-end scenario. So these are just some of the things you might come across when you'll be in an interview and they might ask you to go through some of these flows. And the interview will typically be, let's say, 1 hour, 2 hours, depending on how long different scenarios they want you to go through. So that's what we're going to be covering in this video series. All right, so we'll kick things off by setting up WebdriverIO and writing down our very first test. Let's get started. So I have my terminal right over here, and I'm already into the folder where I want to create my project. So make sure you go into the folder where you want to create your WebdriverIO project. Now here, in order for us to create a new project, all we have to do is simply type in npm init WDIO, and then here we're going to add the path for a project. In my case, the path is going to be WebdriverIO-Amazon. So within my existing folder, I'm saying over there, create a new folder called WebdriverIO Amazon and do all of the initialization in that particular project. So let's go ahead and hit enter and get started. So as you can see, it's going ahead and installing the WebdriverIO CLI to initialize the project. Now this CLI is the command line interface, which will allow us to configure our WebdriverIO project. So once this is installed, then we'll be able to pick and choose how we want to set up our WebdriverIO project. So there you go, our CLI has been successfully installed and it has pulled up a WebdriverIO configuration wizard. Now this is one of the best parts with WebdriverIO. You can really customize it to the level you want. For example, in this case, it's asking, hey, what type of testing would you like to do? If you're not already familiar with WebdriverIO, you can do end-to-end testing, component or unit testing, desktop testing for, let's say, Electron apps, or desktop testing for macOS apps. So a lot more things you can cover with WebdriverIO. It's not just for web automation or, let's say, mobile automation. In our case, we are focusing on end-to-end testing, so I'm going to hit enter here. Then again, where is your automation backend located? Am I using, let's say, some kind of cloud service? I'm running it on local. Do I have some Selenium grid setup? Well, in our case, we're keeping it simple. I have it on my local machine, so I will hit enter here. Now, again, as I mentioned, with end-to-end testing, you can do for web or you can do for mobile. So we are focusing on web, so we'll go with the default. Now, this is some of the new things you're going to see here with WebdriverIO latest versions. It will ask you which browser do you want to go with. So you can decide your browser, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and so on. We are focusing on Chrome, so we'll keep the basic one. And then the framework, you can go with Mocha, Jasmine, Cucumber. We'll go with Mocha. And then do you want to use a compiler? So you can use, let's say, a Typescript, or you can use Babel for all the ES6 and above features. Again, we're going to keep it simple. I'll say no here. And then do you want WebdriverIO to auto-generate some test files? Let's go with no for now. We'll try to keep it, let's say, from scratch. And then we'll add up our files as we need based on some of the requirements that we will have on our Amazon project. So I'll say no here. The reporter, they have different reporter options. We'll keep the default spec reporter. We don't want any plugins. I'll hit enter. We don't want any service as well. Now here, back in the earlier versions, you would select something like a Chromedriver service because you're going with Chrome browser. But with the latest changes, WebdriverIO will take care of installing the driver, such as the Chrome for testing browser, as well as the Chromedriver binary. And we no longer need to use any third-party services for it. So here, we're not going to select anything. We'll keep it by default. Now the website, again, the website we are using in this case is going to be Amazon.com. So I will add the base URL for that. So let me just copy that and paste it right here. There you go. So that's my base URL, Amazon.com, and I will hit enter. And then it's asking me, hey, do I want to install the packages based on all the selections? Well, yes, of course. So I'm going to select yes here. It's going ahead and installing 3 packages for us: the WebdriverIO local runner, the WebdriverIO Mocha framework, as well as the spec reporter. Perfect. So it has successfully set up our project into the desired folder path where I wanted it to be. Now, in order for us to open this up, we'll open up in the favorite IDE that you want to. In my case, I'm going to go with VS Code. You can open it up in any IDE that you want. So I already have a shortcut. I can just do code dot and it would pull it up in VS Code. In your case, you can simply go to the Visual Studio Code and open this up. And I just realized I need to first cd into my desired folder. So I'm just going to do cd WebdriverIO Amazon. Now here I can open it up. So I'll just do code dot here once again. And there you go. Our project has been successfully opened up right here. Now I'm not going to go into too much details of what your package.json is or what your WebdriverIO configuration is, because my expectation is that you should already know how all of these things work and you should have some familiarity with WebdriverIO. Now keep in mind, in an interview, they might ask you, hey, what are some of these files? So you will have to explain what is contained in a package.json or what is contained in your configuration file, why certain configuration is set up that way. So again, all of these things I have covered in my course. If that's something you're interested in, I will add the link for that in the description below, where I go a lot more in detail about all of these things. So I have pulled up Amazon.com over here. So we're going to set off with a very basic test. We will open up Amazon.com, which is our main website. And then from there, I will simply make sure that the title contains Amazon.com as well as the URL contain Amazon.com or simply Amazon. So this is going to be your base test. So we will go ahead and set this up, and this will give you a good understanding of how to write a basic test, how to run the test, as well as how to write your assertions as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to head back to VS Code. And here we're going to go to our WebdriverIO configuration. We're going to take a look at the specs path. So in the specs, there is no path right over here. So maybe I can just create, let's say, a new folder, call this one specs. And within here, I can add in my first file, and the file can be let's call that home.𝐒𝐓𝐻.js. Now here, I want to say in my specs, the file path is going to be specs /*/*.js. That means anything that is inside the specs folder with the JS extension is going to be my spec file. So that's good. Now here we are using Mocha, so I'm going to add in my describe and an id block. So let's do that. So that's my describe block. I can call this one, let's say, the home page or the Amazon homepage, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. In your id block, we will access the URL, we'll verify the URL, and verify the title. So most likely, let's say when you're in an interview scenario, they would not ask you to set up your project. They would expect you to already have this prepared. Let's say any kind of framework that you want to use. Maybe you want to go with WebdriverIO, maybe you want to use Cypress or Playwright. Doesn't really matter. They don't care. All they want to focus on is, can you really go ahead and automate a website? Unless they have a specific requirement where they want to hire an engineer with WebdriverIO skills or a Cypress skills or Playwright skills, then they will probably tell you to set up that thing. So they would expect you to already have everything set up and have something like this pulled up in an IDE of your choice. And then from there, they'll be like, all right, this is what I want you to do. Go to Amazon, and then I want you to go ahead, and the very first test you need to write is access the URL and then verify your URL or title. The idea behind this is they want to know whether you can actually go ahead and write a very basic test, and they will keep increasing the skill level as you will be able to solve these things. And based on that, they might hire you from, let's say, a junior position or intermediate, senior, architect. Totally depends how well you do in these kind of interview scenarios. Now, this is one of the coding scenarios you might come across as the SDT interview. Again, as I mentioned, I've done that in the past and have done it, taken interviews as well. I've asked candidates to do the similar thing. So this is way better than me asking you to do some lead code questions, because I feel like while there is value there as well, these are more practical and what you will do on a day-to-day basis. Anyways, moving on, let's go ahead and verify our URL and title, and we will get started with right here. The very first thing we're going to do is open up the URL. So in WebdriverIO, it all works with async await. So I'm going to add in async here. I will add in await, and then we'll say browser.url, and then I'll just do /. Now, one bonus tip right here for you guys. If we just did browser.url, you can see the type is showing as any, same thing as the URL. That means, I can just type anything in. There's no error being thrown over there, right? Like everything is considering it to be okay because it's not even recognizing the methods. So one thing you can do is, if you're using the JS files, you can just do import, and at the very top, you can just do browser and import it from the WebdriverIO globals. So they have different options here. So I can just do WDIO /globals. All right, now if I hover over to browser, you can see that this is a WebdriverIO browser. It has that specific type added to it. Same thing from a URL, you will get a lot more information. It's going to say, hey, the URL takes in a path with a string. That means in this URL, it's going to take in a path with string. Now, it won't really throw me an error if I still go ahead and do this, because for that case, you will have to use Typescript, where it will know exactly which method is supported by, let's say, the browser object. In this case, it doesn't really know, but you will get a lot more information over here. And at the same time, if you just do dot here, you're going to see all the methods accessible as part of the browser object. So that's what you get when using this kind of globals WebdriverIO, and you import that at the top. Now, this is optional. You don't have to do it. But if you do that, again, that's a bonus point. You will clearly show that you have a lot more knowledge about how the framework works, and you're able to, add in some custom optimizations right on the spot. All right, so this will go ahead and open up our URL. The reason we did / is because in our base URL, in our configuration, we already have the entire URL. And if you remember, as part of our setup, I go right here and go to my configuration. You're going to see in my base URL already have Amazon.com. So I'm saying, hey, just go to the base URL by /. If I want to go to some page, let's say the contact page, this would be Amazon.com /contact. All right, let's remove this. Now, the next thing we'll do is verify our URL. So I can just do await. And here we can use the expect assertions. I'll do expect browser. Now we'll do .to have URL containing. And I can say I want it to contain Amazon. Now, same thing as before, I can even import this at the top, because if I hover over to this says any. So I can just import this at the top as well, expect. So this is again part of my globals. You can see here, expect WebdriverIO.expect. All right, so I've added in my first assertion, which is verifying that the URL should contain Amazon. I can do the same thing, and I can just have, let's say, to have title containing, same thing, Amazon. Now let's go ahead and try to run this test and make sure this successfully works. So to run the test in WebdriverIO, you're going to do npx wdio, and then add in the configuration path, which is wdio.conf.js. And it will go ahead and automatically pick up the spec file based on what you have set up in your configuration. All right, so if you see on the right, we are doing get title, and it seems to be working, but we have some test failures over here. And there you go. So our first assertion worked. We didn't get any error for there, but the second one failed because it's saying, hey, I was expecting Amazon to be in a capital letter, but basically the A should be in caps, but what you put in is actually in small letter. So that means we're going to fix that. So we're going to do capital A, and that should be part of this entire thing. And even I can probably do, let's say, Amazon.com here, and that should work. Now this is good because right away we know our assertions are working because it actually failed. So now if we rerun this test, all of them should work successfully. And there you go. We just ran our test successfully and it worked without any issues. Now at this point, if you're able to do this much, it's going to tell the interviewer that, hey, you clearly understand how to write a test. You're able to do some, let's say, the optimizations by importing browser and expect from WDIO globals. You know how assertions work. Now, depending on the interviewer, they might allow you to, let's say, refer the documentation, or they might say, no, you have to do it on your own. Personally, I feel like there's nothing wrong with looking at the documentation. It's there for a reason. So if you want to take a look at the documentation to understand how to access a particular command in WebdriverIO, I think you should be allowed to do that. But at the same time, let's say if I'm interviewing you and I said, yeah, documentation you're allowed to see. What I would want to see is whether you're able to search for the right thing in the documentation or not. Or are you literally searching for how to write tests in WebdriverIO? Because this will show the difference between how much do you really know. Like in this case, you know that let's say you want to add in the assertion for URL containing. That means, are you searching for URL containing, or are you searching for how do I verify how I can access URL, or maybe let's say Googling that on, I don't know, on Google, trying to figure out how to do all of these things. This shows the difference between how much you know about the framework. So that's what I will be looking for when I'm interviewing you. Like, are you able to, first of all, do it without even looking at the documentation? For example, just the way just I did. And if you're able to do that, then clearly you know what you're doing and you have really amazing skills and you have worked with this framework a lot of amount of time. But again, there will be scenarios where they will say acts as, I don't know, Shadow DOM, iframe or something, and you probably won't know the exact syntax. So for that, it's totally okay to look at the documentation and make sure you know the right way to search for the documentation. And we'll cover that in the later parts of the video. Anyway, so now we have come to the point where we have successfully written our first test. We were able to write our test, so we are moving along really well. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and do some additional tests where the interviewer will ask us to add in some tests that is going to be a little bit more on the advanced side, and we will keep stepping up the game as we move on. Now, as I mentioned, if you want to access this code, it will be available using the link in the description below, so make sure you go ahead and access that. Enter in your email address and you will get a link to the entire code that we're going to be covering in this entire series. And if there are a few things in this video that you really didn't get properly, so for that, make sure guys to check out my course, which is WebdriverIO Complete Beginner course, and I've added it in my academy, @unicorns.com. There, I totally take you step by step on how all of this thing works, how 𝐒𝐓𝐻 works, why we use describe, it block, and all of the different assertion methods as well. So you're going to learn all of those things step by step. And I'll add the link for that in the description below for you guys as well. Hey, welcome back guys. So in a previous video, we went ahead and started automating the Amazon website using WebdriverIO. So we did our basic project setup as well as we wrote our first test. Now in this video, we're gonna go ahead and start adding some additional tests. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm back here on the Amazon website. Now let's imagine your interviewer now asks you to automate the search functionality. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, you can ask the person like, hey, what do you want me to automate over here? So that means you can probably walk through the flow. He's like, all right, I'll probably, let's say, type something in here. Maybe I'm going to type in MacBook. Let's add that in. And now here I have an option to simply click on this search icon. I can tap enter or basically hit enter. That way I will also do the search. I can select an item from the list and I can search from there as well. Assuming he said just go with the basic flow, simply type something in here. Click on the search button, and then you're going to go through your next screen, which is going to be right here. And here you simply have to verify that this particular part, which says 1 out of 16 results for MacBook, matches based on what you search. So that's going to be an entire flow. But the idea behind this flow is that the interviewer is trying to figure out whether you know how to add text into an input field, whether you know how to click on an, or whether you know how to find an element, how to click on a particular element, and then how to verify the text as part of the assertion. So these are some of the different things that we're going to be covering as part of this test that we will be writing. So a few different things we're going to be covering here, different WebdriverIO commands and really common things that you're going to be doing on a day-to-day web automation. So let's go ahead and get started. Now here we'll do right click. Now this is going to be one of the main things as part of any of these interviews. One of the key things they're trying to figure out is, do you really know how to find elements, or whether you can find elements through the dev tools. So this is where your skills will really shine if you are really good with finding elements in the DOM. So we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click on this arrow right here. I will hover over to this and you can see that we have an input type equals text with ID equals to tab search text box. So if you have an ID here, guys, obviously just go with that. That's the easiest way to go for. So simply just copy the ID, paste it here, and then add in an hash there, or basically the pound sign. And it's going to tell you that we have 1 out of 1 node. That means this is a unique node. And they might even ask you, to be honest, what do you mean if there's like one node or multiple nodes? How exactly you would change your test automation strategy? And we will get to that later on. But for now, you will say, hey, this is unique, so I'm going to go with that. So I'll copy this. And I'm going to head back to VS Code. Now I will add in my new test here. So let's call this one search, content, and verify text. Same thing, we'll keep it in a sync block. And then I can just do await $, and then just add this in here. Now let me just explain what I did. Well, first of all, the $, is the way for us to go ahead and find a WebdriverIO element. So anytime you do a $, you add in your selector. You can add in different kinds of selector that WebdriverIO provides. In our case, we're going with the CSS selector as one of our strategy. So I've said, all right, now go ahead and find this, and this will return a WebdriverIO element, which will allow me to do different things on it, such as add in the text, click on it, interact with it, do whatever I want to do with that particular WebdriverIO element. Now, same thing as before, we can import this on the top as well. So I'm just going to comma dollar. And now if I hover over to this, you're going to notice it's saying this is a WebdriverIO element, WebdriverIO.element. So that's good. Now what we want to do is add some text. So to add the text, we can use the add value command. And the moment I started typing, you can see it did all of the auto completion for me. So it's telling me, hey, these are all the different values. This is nice, right? Because now you don't have to look at the documentation. The documentation is right here in your VS Code. This is kind of the smart things you can do. In fact, if you want to take it one level up, use Typescript. They will even tell you if you make some mistake or you write something wrong. But in our case, we'll go with JavaScript. I will add in add value. And then this, I need to fix this because it added additional parentheses here. All right, add value. And what do we want to add in here? So we are searching for MacBook. So I'll just add that here over there. All right, so this will go ahead, find my element or that search text box. Then it's going to add in a text called MacBook there. Now, once I've done that, I need to go ahead and click on that button. So let's find that button and then do a click on that button. And then finally, we will add in our assertion. So heading back to my Chrome. So this is my button. We already know we can simply hover over to that. And then this way, as this one, again, we have an ID with nav search submit button. But let's assume this doesn't have an ID, then what do we go for? So maybe we can go for input type submit. I'm not sure if this is going to be unique, but let's try it out. Yeah, this is unique. So that's nice, right? So we can just do input type as submit. So it could also be possible, guys, that when you're automating this, even though there is an ID, they might be like, hey, don't use the ID, use something else, right? Because if ID is there, it's easy. And ideally, that's what you would want to do. Like if your websites have IDs, just keep using that. They are unique. But again, there is going to be scenarios where the developers won't even add in the ID. So you have to figure out different ways to pick this up. Now, in this case, I said, let's go with the type submit, which is what I added. I also added an input there to make it even more unique. That should be an input with a type submit. Again, we got 1 out of 1 node there, which is perfect. That's exactly what we need. So let's copy this and head back. Now I'll just do await, same thing as before. And then I can just do this time click, because we're going to be clicking on that search button. And right here, there you go, perfect. And let's just fix this parentheses again, because this just keeps coming up as part of VS Code. All right, nice. Now the final thing we need to do is verify our text. So for that, we need to find that text, and then we need to see what is the element for that. And then we'll add in an assertion to verify that the text contains, let's say MacBook, or it should match exactly as MacBook. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll head back to Chrome. We'll search for MacBook here again. The text we need to go for is this one. So I'll hover over that. And you can see it already has a span class of 𝐒𝐓𝐀, text bold. So maybe we can just copy the whole thing. And the moment I did that, you can see I'm getting a unique node. But one thing you need to remember is this is a class. So either you can just wrap it in a class here like this, or you can simply add in a dot here and then add in a dot here as well. So this is, again, one way to go ahead and find that element. So I just did that. And now I'm going to copy this, head back right over here. And then we'll just do await, $. And then here I will just say expect this to have text. Now here, if you guys don't know how to do this, like how to verify the text, I pause the video here, go to the documentation and take a look at how you can verify the element has a text and it should match to the expected text that you want. So this is like a little exercise. So pause the video right now, go ahead, try to figure out how you can find this assertion on your own, where you can verify that the text contains MacBook. Once you're done, come back and then we'll verify our flow. All right, so how was that exercise? Were you guys able to figure it out? So let's head over to the documentation to see if I don't really know what is that right assertion, how would I find it? So I'm going to go to Chrome. I'm going to search for WebdriverIO here. Now right here in my search box, I will search for expect assertions because that's what we're using. And we can go right there. And within expect, you can see we have all of these different assertions right over here. So if I simply just scroll down, we're going to look for something with text. So maybe we can just do a quick search. I'll just search for text here. And there you go. So we found it on the right to have text or to have text containing. So I think we want to match the exact text, because if I go back here, MacBook is the exact text. So we'll just verify the same text here, and I can just do 𝐒𝐓𝐻_text. But one thing to realize is this one is actually within quotes versus the one we search for is not within the quotes. So maybe something like 𝐒𝐓𝐻_text containing is good enough, because it's not an exact match, but it's close enough. So let's use that. Now here I can just wrap this into an expect assertion. Now I can just do 𝐿_have, instead of title containing, I will say text containing. And now here I can simply add in MacBook. Perfect. So that's my overall test. Let's try to run this to make sure this works. So we'll do the same thing, npx WDIO. And this will go ahead and run both the tests together, which is fine. They're independent, so it should work fine. There you go. Just did a search for MacBook. And look at that. My test successfully passed. Perfect. Again, you can try to fail your assertion to make sure it's actually working, but let's just assume this works and you're good to go. Now, one little optimization we can do over here is, instead of adding all of these elements right here, we can create a variable for them, which is a little bit more readable. So I can call this one, let's say, a search input, and then just add this entire thing there like this. I can add another one, call this one, let's say, search button, and then just put this whole thing over here. And finally, I can just do, what is this, expected search text, and then we can copy this thing. So let's just copy this and do the same thing, await, and paste it right here. So this way now I can go ahead and keep replacing these items, replace this one with my search input, replace this with search button, and then finally replace this as well with expected search text. Now I know the code is actually longer. We have added 3 more lines, but the advantage you get with that, or you can tell to the interviewer, is that, hey, now that I've separated my selectors out, I can copy this, reuse it in other places as well, make it in a global, put it in my page object. There's different ways you can now take this existing selectors that you have added in and put it in its own file so that you can reuse it in multiple places. And then this part right here is a lot more readable compared to adding all of those selectors over here. Now, if you want to learn how to work with page object model and how to move all of the selectors into a separate file and import them, then make sure to check out my WebdriverIO course, where I go into all of the details over there. All right, let's just quickly run this again to make sure it's still working and we haven't really broken anything. All right, we're searching for MacBook. And there you go. My test successfully passed, this time again. So to quickly summarize this video, we verified how we can go ahead and search for an element. This is one of the huge things. We looked into searching by ID. Then let's say the interviewer threw us a curveball and said, hey, this time don't work with ID, use with something else. So we created our custom CSS selector, which is this input type submit. And after that, we went in with the regular classic CSS selectors, where we just simply mixed 2 classes together, and then we added that as part of our search text. Now, this is extremely important if you know how to work with DOM. Be able to quickly search through the DOM and create your own custom selectors. It will really help you in your interviews, as well as also when you're doing your test automation as well. Now, I have again a course on HTML and CSS where I cover with how you can go ahead and find different selectors. So you can go ahead and take a look at that as well. And finally, we looked into different methods such as add value, click, 𝐒𝐓𝐻_text containing, and looked at how we can refer to the documentation as well. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And also let me know in the comments below what other content you would like me to create, or similar projects with different frameworks. Maybe you want me to create this for, let's say, I don't know, Playwright or Cypress or some other frameworks that you're interested in for a different website or the same website. Let me know and I will be happy to go ahead and create similar content for that as well. Hey, welcome back, guys. So we've successfully went ahead and automated 2 flows for the Amazon website. Now in this video, we're gonna go ahead and do the automation for the auto suggestion flow. So let's head over to the Amazon website and take a look at how we can do it. All right, so I'm back here on the website. Now, one of the common things interviewer might ask you for a website like this, or specifically website that includes a search functionality, is to automate the auto suggestion flow. So here's what they're going to say. He's like, simply click on this. And as you can see, you have all of this auto suggestions showing up right over here. So as part of this, they might ask you, all right, you have to go ahead and pick the first one or the second one or whatever. Really, it's kind of up to us which one you want to go ahead and pick it. But the idea is that we have to click on this and then find the one that is in the auto suggestion. And let's say we go with the first one, headphones for school. Once we click on this, we have to verify that we're able to go to the next page by doing the entire search. Now this one is going to be interesting because the way we can implement this really depends on how this auto suggestion feature is implemented. So you need to analyze the DOM and decide on a particular way to go for. So before we jump on to the actual implementation, how about this? This is an exercise for you guys to do. Pause the video and go ahead and do the automation for this auto suggestion flow. So here's what you're going to do. You will come to this amazon.com. You will simply click on this and then pick the first one. Doesn't even matter. Don't even have to go to the second one and all. Pick the first one. It will automatically go ahead and do the search for it the moment you will click on it. And then you have to verify that the text that is, let's say, you clicked on or the one that is showing up over here is actually the one that's showing up over here as well. You can also simply just go for based on when you are actually clicking on it before you do the click. Let's say if I go here, before you do the click on the first one, you get the text and then you verify that the text you got is the same text that is actually being searched here. So go ahead and try to implement this. The reason I want you guys to do this instead of me simply just showing it to you, because when I show you the solution, you'll just be like, oh yeah, that's probably how I would have done it as well, or it just all makes sense. But when you start doing it yourself, you're going to start noticing the problems, because maybe in your case, you will probably struggling with figuring out the solution, like how do you even approach the solution in the first place? Or you might struggle with finding the elements, or you might struggle with assertions, right? Or you might struggle with some wait commands. It can be totally different based on how much you know about the framework or what are some of the common challenges you face with automation. So that's why extremely important. Go ahead, try this out on your own. Once you have done this successfully, or let's say you hit a roadblock and not able to move past a particular issue, then come back to this video and take a look at how I would do this. All right, so pause this video and good luck with this exercise, and I'll show you how I will do this in a bit. All right, so were you guys able to do that exercise? Was it as simple as you thought it was going to be? All right, so let me show you how I would do this. So I'm going to head back to this Amazon site. I already have access to this particular search input field, right? We already did that as part of our previous screen. So what I'm going to do is simply come over here, do a click on this, because that's how it activates this auto suggestion. I'll do a click on it, and then I need to pick up the first one. And that's where the interesting thing comes in. Well, I can't really just go ahead and use my mouse. I mean, that's one way to go do it. I can simply just say whatever that my current position is, and then from there, just move my mouse X or Y pixels down, and then it will pick that one. But that's just too complicated. Instead, the right way would be, let me just remove this. The right way would be, once I click on it, I can hit the down key. It went ahead and automatically picked that option for me. So the key to this entire solution is being able to know how to work with keyboard keys. In this case, we are using the arrow key. And once we have done that, we have to hit enter, which is again a keyboard key. I will hit enter, and this will go ahead and do the search for me. So that is pretty much the solution we're going to go for. And then everything else is kind of going to be the same thing. We'll simply just make sure we're able to find the text and then make sure it's there as part of my assertion. So let's go ahead and try to implement this and see how it would look like. Here, I'm going to add in a new it block, call this one auto suggestion, make this an async again. And we're going to work with the same search input. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it right here. Now I'm just going to do search input dot click, because we have to first click on it. So this will open up my auto suggestion window. Then I have to hit the down arrow key. Now, again, for this one, feel free to pull up the documentation. So let me just show it to you. So maybe you don't really know how to do it, but you just know on a high level, you have to use, let's say, the down arrow key. So you can search for something like keys here. Or, I mean, I don't know if you can search for down arrow if it would show up. Nope, that doesn't. Yeah, so in this case, you would have to kind of know that you have to use the browser.execute command. If you notice that, you're going to see different modifiers here, such as left arrow or like the I don't know, shift alt command, or different kind of options that you can do. And you can see how to use it over here as well. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do browser.keys, and then we're going to use the arrow down, and that will go ahead and automatically map it to the right keyboard key. So let's go ahead and do that. And if you want, by the way, there's detailed documentation. If you go to perform actions and you can go to the official protocol docs, this will pull up all of the different ways you can how, and we can go ahead and actually figure out which arrow key to use. So I think there must be one here for arrow down. If I do a search arrow, there you go. So we have arrow left, arrow up, arrow down. You can either use this one or you can simply just type in arrow down. So that's what we're going to go for. I'm going to head back to VS Code. So right here, I'm going to do await browser.keys, and then I will do arrow down. So this will go ahead and pick that particular element for me. And then I'm going to do again browser.keys, and I'm going to do enter on that because I will go ahead and hit enter. And that will take me to my next screen, which is going to be the text that we actually searched for. So let's just add in a pause here just to kind of see what happens, or is it actually working as we expect it to be. So I'll add a 2-second pause after we hit the enter. If you're able to select that, let's say, be able to do down arrow and then be able to hit enter and go to the next screen, that means our flow is working. So let's run this to make sure whether we're able to get this to work. And then we can look into optimization. So let's run this test, and I will make sure to only run this one. So I will add a dot only to this because I don't want to run all the other ones as it might mess up my existing flow. And again, I will need this one as well because we have to make sure we are opening up the URL first. So I'll then add browser.url at the top. Let's run this. All right, there you go. So we are waiting for it, and seems like it wasn't able to go to the next screen. Maybe let's increase the pause so that you can actually see what's happening. The test will pass in this case because we don't really have any assertion. So it will find that search text box. Let's see, it find the search text box. It didn't really open anything, and I'm back to the same Amazon.com. So it seems like it's not working. Now, I don't know if you were trying to do this flow on your own, or whether when you did your exercise, if you came across this or not. I increased the timeout to actually 5 seconds here. And also I just realized I should add an await keyword over here as well. I forgot that. So I just added. Now let's run this to see what we get back. So there you go. So it's going to click on this. And then as you notice, nothing really happened because everything was extremely quick. So we're not even able to see, like it's not going to the next screen. Although the test did pass because we don't have any assertions. So that's fine. But we weren't able to actually search for the first actual auto-suggestion entry that was there. And we're not able to go to the next screen. Now, the reason this is happening is because when we do a dot click, we need to wait for that window to show up, which has all the auto-suggestion option. So we need to add some kind of wait there. Then we do the arrow down. And then after that, we have to do our enter. So even maybe for that as well, we might have to add in some kind of pause as well. So let's throw in some waits here, hard-coded waits, and see if you're able to get a test to work. So here I'm going to add in after the click, I'll do browser.pause. And maybe I'll wait for 1 second here, which is 1000 millisecond. And then after I do arrow down, I'll wait for 1000 millisecond again. So this time it should work because the timing issues that we were having resolved it with the hard-coded waits. So let's take a look at it. You might see something like this, by the way, like it will not even show you the search option. For that, simply just maximize the window and that should technically fix it. But again, either rerun the test or maximize the window. Both ways should work. In my case, I'll just rerun it. Hopefully that should fix it. And that's part of Amazon, guys. Like it's their website. We don't really control it. So you might see this kind of stuff being shown up from time to time. All right, this time it is fine. Now, as you can notice, we are now going ahead, selecting that item, and then we search for it. Now we are on the next page. So this is perfect. That's exactly what we want to do. Now, the next thing your interviewer would be like, well, you added this hard-coded pauses. Do you think if you can optimize this? Well, yes, we can, because obviously we all know using this hard-coded pause is not a good way to be writing our test. So in order for it to optimize, we need to come up with some another solution, or basically an optimized solution. So let's head back to our Chrome. Now here, when we click on it, we notice this window pops up. So what if we wait for this window to show up first, then we do all of the other actions? So let's do a right click here. And let's take a look at this window that we are showing up over here. So this window is called this left pane result container. Let's search for this. All right, so it's a unique. So left pane result container. So we'll wait for this left pane result container to show up. This would be our sign to say that, okay, now auto suggestion options are coming up. That means I can do arrow down and then I can hit enter. And then while we are doing this, we also have to go ahead and make sure we are picking the first option from here. So for that, let's hover over to this as well. Now that one is a div, right? So that means if I do left pane result container, add in a div, you can notice I'm going through this different div options, but I want to maybe go with the one that is nearest to it. So I can probably do something like this. By the way, if you don't really know, it's saying just go with the first child div from there. So it's going to the first one, then it's going to the second one, then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on. So there's total 10 entries and all 10 of them are showing up like this. So that's what we would want to do. We'll do left pane result container / well, not / the greater than sign div, and then that's going to show us all of the entries. So we will pick the first one, which is right here, this thing. We'll get the text for that. Once I have the text, I will verify this text in the next screen. So we'll kind of do all of those things at the same time. So let's go ahead and implement this. Now I know if you think this is a little bit confusing, like you're not able to figure this out, that's totally okay, guys. It takes time to be able to figure this kind of solutions. You would have probably went with, let's say, not the div, but some kind of other solution as well. Let's say you might have went directly with this suggestion trending container class, and that's okay too. I mean, that's one way of implementing this as well. As long as you're able to get the text, that's all we care about. All right, so I already have this. I'm gonna copy this thing, go back to VS Code. I will add in a new variable here, call this one suggestion pane, and this would be await $left pane result container. Now here we have to add in a wait. We haven't really looked into how to add wait, so we're just going to do await suggestion pane dot, and I can just say maybe, let's say, wait for it to be displayed. So here I can add in an expect block, call it expect suggestion pane to be displayed. Now I won't pull up the documentation, guys, because in this case, you should know by now that if you want to learn something, how to do it, simply go to the expect and take a look at all the assertion. In my case, I already know, I've done this before, so that's why I know I can use to be displayed. Once I've done that, I don't need this browser.pause anymore. I can remove it. I'm going to do the arrow down. I would not need this again. I can remove that. Now, before I do the enter, I'm going to go ahead and fetch the first search result. So I can create a variable for that. I can do first search result. And that is, I can do it this way, basically add in the div for that. Or another one nice way you can do is you can just do left pane, suggestion pane dot $, and I'm just chaining the existing selector. So I'm just saying, all right, after that, pick that first div. So it will go ahead, pick that one, then it will take the first div from there, which is also going to be the same thing. And then from there, I will get and then from there, since I'm using a single $sign, it's going to give me the first div. If I use the $, then it's going to give me all of those divs that are there. But I just need the first one because that is my first search result. So I'm going to get that. And then for that, I can just say, after I've done arrow key, I'll do const expected text. It should equal first search result dot get text. So this will give me whatever the first search result is, it will give me the text for that thing. And then I can do my enter and go to the next screen. Now we don't need this anymore. We will add in our final assertion. So let's add that in as well. So I'll do await expect. Now here I need to add in my element and I don't really know what the expected search text is. So let's just do const expected. And actually it's going to be the same as the previous one. So let's do the same thing. Search text equals, most likely it's going to be the same thing as the previous screen. So let's this thing. But we can verify it. I can just copy this, go back to Chrome, search for something, and then just simply do find here. Yep, that's the one. So right here is the one we need. So now let's go back. So I'm going to say expected search result or search text. Can have text containing. And what should it have the text? Well, the text is going to be the expected text, which we found right here. All right, I know we did a lot of things here and probably is going to be confusing if you're not familiar with WebdriverIO that much, but let me walk you through. So originally we had the timing issues. To resolve the timing issue, we added the suggestion pane. I'm saying, hey, wait for the suggestion pane to be displayed after you do the click. Once it shows up, then I'm saying, all right, now do your down arrow. So once you do the down arrow, it's going to come to the first search result. I'm saying, okay, now get me the text for that search result. And I've basically done left pane result container and added a div on top of that. Then I'm getting the text for that. Then I'm hitting enter. And then I'm doing the same thing as before, simply verifying that that should match the text that I actually searched for. Let's run this to make sure this works. I'll do npx WDIO, same thing as before. All right, so it's actually, as you can see, it went to the next screen and it's trying to verify the text. And there you go, my test successfully passed right over here. If I go over to my logs, you can notice the result we're getting back is headphones for school. That's exactly what we searched for. All right, so this was a lot more complicated flow, guys, compared to the previous one, because first of all, you had to know how to work with this auto suggestion. You got to know that you have to use the keys command to be able to use arrow down and then be able to use enter as well. So these are all the things only comes with experience if you have played with the framework a lot. And that's the reason I'm doing this video, so that you get experience with this different kind of flows that you might come across in a real interview, whether it might be them just asking you a question or whether you're actually coding it on the spot. So I want you guys to be prepared for situations like this. The more you do it, the more you'll get experience with coming across these different kind of problems. All right, so that's it for this video, guys. In the next couple videos, we'll go through the cart flow, which is also going to be a little bit different flow, but a really common one with e-commerce website. Again, if you enjoyed this video, guys, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I would really appreciate it if you share this video with your friends and colleagues that might find this video helpful as well. Also, let me know in the comments below if you want me to try out similar projects for different frameworks or even different websites. Add all of that in the comments below, and based on the demand, I will go ahead and create those ones as well. Hello, welcome back. So in this video, we will take a look at how to do our cart flow, or basically adding an item to a cart and then verifying the price for that particular item. Now, this is a really common flow for e-commerce website. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at how to execute this. Now, there's a few things that we will be handling in this video, and that would be how to work with hooks, specifically the before hook, as well as how to work with hidden element. Now, as we will go through this flow, you will come across an element that's going to be hidden or that will have the opacity set to 0. So we'll take a look at how to handle that particular element so that we can get a text from it. And then finally, we'll go ahead and verify the price for that particular item. So once again, I'm going to head over to the Amazon website. I will walk you through the flow that we're going to be covering. And then I will give you the same challenge. You have to go ahead and pause the video and try out the same thing yourself. Once you have completed, or let's say you get stuck, then you can come back to the video and review it. So let's head over to the Amazon website and get started. So I'm back here in Amazon, and here we're going to go through our entire flow. So we'll cover all the things that we have covered before, that is searching for an item. So here we're going to search for MacBook. And then we're going to pick the first item from the result. So you're going to pick, let's say, this one or whatever shows up in your case. And now here, you're going to go ahead and verify or basically get the price for this particular item. That is $16.99.95. In my case, it could be anything else in your case. And then you're going to go ahead and click on add to cart. Now, if you search for an item, let's say that is not possible to add to cart, then simply change it to an item which you can add it to a cart. If let's say MacBooks are not available, you can search for iPhone, iPad, whatever that might be, doesn't really matter. As long as you get to a similar screen like this, where you see the price and you have an option to add to cart, then you verify the price, get whatever the price is, store that, then you do add to cart. Once you come here, then I want you to verify this text, add it to cart. And I also want you to verify the amount that was over there is actually the same amount that shows up as part of cart subtotal as well. So again, you search for an item, you pick the first item, and from there you verify the price for that item, you add to the cart, you verify this text that it's been added to the cart, and then you verify that the subtotal is the same as the device price. So this is the overall flow that we're going to be covering in this video. So again, pause the video, go ahead, try this out on your own. And once you're done, come back to this video and I'll show you how to do this. All right, so how was that exercise? Were you guys able to figure it out? Now this one was a little bit complicated, so it's okay if you struggle with it, that's totally fine. So let me head over to VS Code and we will get started. But before that, let me delete this item from cart. All right, let me head over to VS Code. Here, I'm going to create a new file. I'll call this one cart.e2e.js. Now we'll do the same thing. I'll add my describe init block. This one I can call it, let's say, cart flow. And the first one is going to be add item to the cart. And this is going to be an async function, so we'll keep it async here. Now here we're going to start adding all of our cart related logic. So the very first thing we need over here is to go through the same process that we did before, which is searching for the item. And then we come to the next page. And then from there, we have to click on that first result item and then add that particular item to the cart. So for that, what I'm going to do is add in a new block here, and that is a before block or like a before hook. Now right here, I'm going to make this an async as well. Now I'm going to copy the exact same thing that we did when we were trying to search for the text. So I'll go back to, let's say, home.e2e.js, and let's see what we were doing there. So search content and verify text. So this thing, so I'll just copy this up until here. I'm going to go back right here and simply paste that. So this will go ahead, search for MacBook. I don't need this expected search text, so I can remove that. And then it will click on the search button. Now this will take me to that page where I can go ahead and select the first search item. So from here, now let's head back over to Amazon and then go ahead and proceed with the rest of our flow. So I'll go back to the website. I'll search for, let's say, MacBook here. Now this is the search result that we want to go ahead and pick it up. So let's do right click here and do inspect. All right, so let's select this one and see what we get back. So this is an image. Let's see if we can find an anchor tag. So this is that, div AOK. Let's keep going up. I'm trying to see if I can find maybe, let's say, unique thing for the entire section. So let's say for this section right here. Okay, I think this might work. So we have a class here, which is the product image container. So this seems fine. So let's copy this. And I'm going to search for this. All right, so I have product container here, and I have the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Perfect. So this is what we need. So we need the first one from here. And you can notice this is not unique. We have 24 nodes, and that's okay because over here, these results are all pretty much same, except the content is changing there. So you won't have, let's say, if they haven't really done something to make it unique, then you'll likely have to work with all of the nodes together. So I'm going to copy this thing. And this is something new. We haven't looked into it, how to work with multiple nodes. So that we'll figure it out in this video. Now let me head back to VS Code. Here, I'm going to simply do await. Now in WebdriverIO, if I want to access all the nodes together, I can do $. And then this will give me all the nodes at the same time. That means this will pretty much return those 24 nodes. I can do this. And then from there, I can, let's say, pick the first one by simply just doing this kind of array and pick the 0th index. That's one way because that will give me one node. Or a better way to do that is if I simply get rid of that and I just say, just do $. What this will do is it will automatically go ahead, find all of those elements, and it will give me the first element. So that's kind of a trick that you can apply by simply adding $. And it doesn't matter how many containers are there or image container, it's going to give me the first one. So once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and do .click on that. And again, one thing we forgot to do is add in those browser and so on that we had over here. So let's just copy this and paste it right here. There you go. So that's good. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is once we are here, we have to go ahead and verify the price. So let's go back or basically get the text for the price. So I'm going to click on this. Now this is the price that I need. So I'm going to hover over to this. So we have two ways the prices are showing up. One is for this off screen, one is for this area hidden true. So it doesn't really matter which one you go for. So let's say I'm going to go for this area hidden true, and I'm going to try to access the text for this. Now again, if you went for this one, it might not have worked for you. And the reason because if I just go right here on the right, you're going to see the opacity is set to 0. We will take a look at how to handle this when we go to the next screen. But for now, I'm simply going to go with this one. So I'm going to copy this whole thing. So I'll try to see what is a unique element here. So let's see if I can find it. All right, so that's the ID. We have core price desktop. So I'll copy that. Then from there, I'll get the span that I need. And actually, that's going to give me multiple spans. So I'm simply going to get this area hidden true. So I'll say span that has area hidden set to true. And that's the one I need. So it's actually returning me 2 nodes, and that's fine. Both of them are the same thing. So I'll just pick the first one. So let me copy this and head back to my Visual Studio Code. And then right here, I'm going to get the expected text or expected amount or device price, whatever you want to call it. Let's say call it a device price, for example. Device price, I'll do await, put that in there. Now this one is going to be dot get text because I want to get the text for that particular element. All right, so that's what we got. And this has added 2 parentheses. Again, we don't need them. Perfect. So just to kind of show it to you, so what we did is we added in this particular element, and then from there we're doing a get text. This will give me the device price. Once I have the device price, I need to click on the add to cart button. So that's going to be a next step. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, head back to Chrome. I need to click on this add to cart button. So do right click and inspect. This one we have an ID, add to cart button. So that's easy. Let's just use that thing. And then here I'm just going to do await $, add to cart, and then do a dot click on this. All right, now before I do anything else, let's just make sure that this part is working. So for this, I will add in await browser.pause. And let's just wait here for, I don't know, maybe 5 seconds. Let's try that out. Let's run this to make sure this is working. Now this time to run this, we're not going to run the whole thing together. We will simply run just this file. So with WebdriverIO, you can do that by doing npx-webdriverIO, and then you provide the spec file. So I can do dash spec, and in our case, we can go to specs cart.𝐒𝐓𝐻.js. Oh, I just realized that it's not going to open up the browser because we forgot to add await browser.url. There you go. So now it's going to open up the home page, and then we can do all the rest of the things. All right, so we're on Amazon. It should search for MacBook. That's good. Should click the first item. There you go. It just did. Now it should add an item to the cart. All right, it did that as well. Perfect. Now we're on the final screen. Here we're going to verify edit to cart as well as verify a subtitle. Now one thing I want to make sure is whether I was able to get the text or not. So if we hover over, take a look at our logs. Let's see what we get back from get text. All right, so this is the thing that we were searching for, which was span area hidden true. And for the text, I got my text back, which is right here, 1699.95. So that's good. That means I'm getting my device price. And the next thing is simply adding our assertions and verifying our subtotals. So let's do that as well. I will add this item to the cart. We should verify this text, add it to cart. And this one is, let's see. All right, that's this ID right here. And that has a span, I believe. Yep, that has a span. Perfect. So let's just copy this and go back to VS Code. And here I'm going to add in my assertion. So I'll just say await $, and it should be, actually this should be expect dot to have text. And the text should be added to cart. So let me just add that in over here as well. All right, so this should be added to cart. Perfect. Now the next thing would be is to verify the subtotal. So let's go back and get that as well. So this is my subtotal. Now in this case, you're going to notice that we have 2 spans, but this one is broken down into, let's say, multiple texts. So we don't need this. What we need is this one, which is 𝐒𝐓𝐷. So let's see what we have for that. I have the same subtotal count. And then I have this class, which is 𝐒𝐓𝐷. So I can copy that and paste it right here. And the reason this is not coming because it's supposed to be, let's see, this is a span. So let's add that in. So I'm going to copy this whole thing, do span, and paste this right here. Oh, I just realized. So I picked the wrong one. I picked the subtitle item count. That's not what we need. What we need instead is this thing, which is ID's SW subtotal, because this picks the whole thing together. So I can just remove this. And there you go. Now it's picking the one that we need. Perfect. So let's copy this and go back to VS Code. Now I will do the same assertion as before. I'll say expect dollar, paste that there. And what do we want it to expect? That it should have text, and the text should be the same as the device price. Perfect. So let's run this to see whether this would work. So I'm going to run it now. Right, so we are adding the item to the cart. Now we need to verify the subtotal, but seems like something is failing. So if you notice right here in the result, all the expected was that we were supposed to see this text, which is the device price. Received was nothing. So it's not getting the text back that it's supposed to get, which is 1699.95. Well, why is that? Because if you just copy this and go back to Chrome, you can notice that right here, the text is there, right? You can see it over here, 1699.95 is there. But why am I not able to get that back when I'm doing my assertion? So most likely, if you guys tried this out on your own, this is probably where you got stuck, because you were trying to verify this text and it was not showing up. Now, when this happens, usually what you need to do is take a look at what is happening with this particular class. Well, over here, we have the text we can see, but does that mean this class is doing something else? So if I just head back, or basically take a look over here, this class seems fine. There's nothing weird. But the one right here, which is .𝐒𝐓𝐿, is the class that is implemented here. In this, you can see the opacity is set to 0. Now that's the problem. When the opacity is set to 0, WebdriverIO cannot see this text on the screen. So the text we're seeing right over here is a mixture of these texts that has been built and showing up over there. This one is hidden. So what we need to do is, there's two ways. One, we can change the opacity to 100 and then get the text. That's one way to do it. Or we can maybe get this text through the DOM. If you haven't worked with this, well, let me show you how that will look like. So for that, I'm just going to copy the selector. And you can do something like document.querySelector. Now right here, I can paste in my selector. And if I hit enter, you can see I'm getting this entire text back as well as the amount as well. So here, maybe I can do something like inner text. So inner text will return me the text, or maybe I can do something like text content, and that will return me the same text back as well. So it doesn't matter which one I go with. Let's say text content or this, it would work. So let me just copy this whole thing, and we're going to see how we can execute a DOM query inside WebdriverIO. So that's something you're probably not sure if you have worked with it or not, but that's a common flow. Anytime you need to manipulate the DOM, make some changes, you will have to go ahead and use the browser.execute command, where you can go ahead and simply add this DOM command and get the desired result that you want. If it sounds too confusing, don't worry, let me show you how that looks like. Now what I want you guys to understand is, right now we were not able to get the text because this element had opacity set to 0. And because of that, the browser was not able to read the text because opacity is set to 0. So what we need to do is, instead of getting it through, let's say, the browser way where user is able to see it, we're going to get it directly accessing it through the DOM. So for that, we can use something called await browser.execute. Now this browser.execute will take in a script. Now this is a JavaScript snippet that you can inject directly into the page, and you can get access to whichever DOM element that you want. So this takes in a function, and then right here I can paste in the same exact query and I can return it over here. So the same query that we got there, I've put it over here by doing browser.execute, created an error function, and then I'm returning that query back. So what this will do is it will return me the price. So this would be, let's say, const subtotal. So the subtotal will be returned over here. Now this thing, instead of doing this way, I can say my subtotal. Instead of doing dot to have text, I will simply say it should equal to my device price. Now we now need this opacity, so let's remove this. All right, so let me show you what I did. So I am getting the subtotal by directly accessing the DOM. This will return me that text that I need, and that text should match the device price. Basically, it should match 1699.95. Let's run this to make sure this works. So there you go. This time it's going back. And look at that, my test successfully passed this time. And if I hover over, you can see now we're getting that result back from this DOM query. This is the exact DOM query that we ran. We're getting 1699.95 returned, and that is the same thing which I have as part of my device price as well. And so because of that, my test is working as expected. Now I know this test was complicated, and if most likely you won't come across this kind of things in interview, or if you do, you don't have to, let's say, code it, but you need to understand if something like this happens, how are you going to handle it? For example, I might ask you in an interview saying, hey, if there's a hidden element and you need to access it, how would you do that? So you need to be able to say that, oh, I can use, let's say, browser.execute query, and then from there I can access it directly through DOM, or I can manipulate that element and change the hidden property to, let's say, make it visible by, let's say, changing the opacity from 0 to 100, or whatever way. Let's say if the display is set to none, I would change that display to block so that I can actually access it. There's different ways you can answer it, but as long as you have this answer, you don't have to code it. But if you can explain it to the interviewer that, hey, I know how to do this, this is the process to go ahead and execute this, and I've done this in the past, and this was pretty much all of the A to Z steps. If you do that, that's good enough. Of course, if you can code it, that's perfect. You get the bonus points right there. So to quickly summarize, we first went in, used a before hook where we added all of the entire flow here. Then we went ahead and clicked on the first image. We got the text by doing .getText. We saved it in the device price. We added the item to the cart. We verified that as an assertion. Now, since this was a hidden element, we had to use DOM.querySelector to be able to access that particular text. And finally, we're just simply verifying it by using .toEqual, which is one of the just assertions. And that's okay, guys. If you're not able to figure this out on your own, that's totally fine. That's the reason I'm doing this video, so that you come across these different scenarios which might happen when you're working in a, let's say, real company, or if maybe during the interview. So you need to be able to answer all of these things. Now, I have covered how to work with browser.execute in more details in my course with WebdriverIO Complete Beginner course. If you haven't checked that out, make sure to go ahead and click on the link in the description below, where I go ahead and cover everything on how to work with WebdriverIO in a lot more detail. Plus, you're going to find all of my other courses in the academy as well. So if you want to step up your game as an SDET, then you can find all courses related to web automation, mobile automation, API automation, and so on. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And let me know in the comments below what other content you would like me to create for the future videos. Now again, if you want to access all of this code, it will be available for you. And all you have to do is simply go to the link and add in your email, and you'll get an email back with how you can access the code that we just covered in this video. Hey, welcome back, guys. So in this series, we went ahead and covered lots of different flows on how to automate the Amazon website using WebdriverIO. Now this is going to be the final video of this series, where we're going to go ahead and update our cart to make sure we change our item from 1 to 2, and then we simply make sure that the amount get updated as well. So let's go ahead and start implementing that. So I'm going to head back to Amazon. Now I'm back here where we left in our previous video, where I've added the item to the cart. So over here, we're going to click on Go to Cart, or maybe we can click on this cart icon here. So let's go with this one. I'm going to click on the cart. And from here, I'm going to change the quantity from 1. I'm going to change it to 2. The moment I will change that, remember that subtitle is going to get updated. So I'm going to change it to 2 here. Now, as you can notice, the subtotal has been changed now. So that's pretty much going to be our next test. Pretty simple. Simply from where we left off previously, all you have to do is click on the cart icon. From there, change the quantity from 1 to 2. And then you have to make sure that the subtitle has been updated. Now again, you don't have to verify the exact text, because then that would mean doing a calculation. You will have to pass that string to a number, then you'll have to do the math to make sure it's times 2 and so on. That's going to be too complicated. You don't have to worry about doing that, and they would probably not ask you to do in the interview as well. All you have to do is make sure that the quantity has been changed. It's no longer 1699.95. So it should not match what the original quantity was. It should change to something new. And it doesn't matter what it changed to, as long as it gets updated. That's all we care about for this particular test. So how would you achieve this? Well, in this case, we're going to have to work with negative assertions. If you haven't done that, that's something new that we're going to be covering in this video. So we can use something like not to equal or not to have text. That's what we're going to cover in this video. So again, pause this video, try this out on your own. This should be comparatively straightforward. And once you're done, then we're going to come back and I'll show you how I will do this. All right, so how was this exercise, guys? I hope this wasn't too difficult. So let me show you how I would do this. So the very first thing I'm going to do is get access to this cart item. So let me just copy that. All right, so this cart has an ID of navcart. and it is, let's copy this here, and it is unique as well. So that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to head back to VS Code, and I will add in a new it block. Now this time we are adding a dependent test. That means the new test is going to be dependent on this one. It's not the best way to do it, but assuming you're part of, let's say in an interview flow, you can explain them that, hey, I'm adding a dependent test. Ideally, you want to have your test isolated, so it's not really dependent on any other test. But for now, it's fine. We'll just say update to cart or update cart item, cart quantity actually. Let's change it to async. And then I'll just do await. Hopefully by now you should know how to handle all of this. So we'll just do .click. Now once we have clicked on this, the next thing we have to do is change the quantity from 1 to 2. So let's do that as well. So to do that, you have to first click on this quantity item. So let's find the element for that. All right, so we seem to have an ID for that, which is a select ID quantity. So we can use that. So I can copy this quantity, paste it here. All right, we can use this. Or maybe if you want to use something else, not really use an ID, you can change it to select name equals quantity. That's totally fine as well. And in our case, quantity is easy. Let's just go with that. So we're going to do same thing over here, await $quantity dot click again. All right, so this will open up the cart quantity. And once we have that, we want to go ahead and select the one that we want. So in our case, you want to select, let's say, number 2. So maybe we can do right click there and do inspect. All right, there you can see right here, it is actually part of a UL, which is the unordered list. Within that unordered list, we have different quantities. So quantity 0, quantity 1, and you can see it's nicely tagged with an ID 2. So we can just copy that as well. So I'll just do quantity 2 with an ID. And there you go. So once I do that, I can go ahead and access this. And there's 2 of these. So let's see which one we need. So it seems like we need this one. So I can probably do UL, quantity 2. Well, both are same. So I think that should be fine. So let's just go with this one. We'll pick the first one from there. I'm going to do await $quantity 2 dot click again. So this one pretty seems straightforward, right? All we are doing is simply just doing click here, do this, do that. So it's not as complicated as the previous ones where we had to work with very different elements. Now finally, this will update our subtotal. So we need to get the subtotal element and I can store it over here. So I'll just do updated subtotal. And then we can store it over here. So I just do await $, and I need that element. So that element is going to be right here. So this one has an ID, which is again so nice for us. And this is a span most likely. Yep, so that's a span. So let's just copy this and go back to VS Code and paste it right here. Now I know I'm going this like in a pretty fast pace. If you again are someone that's on a beginner level that don't really understand how I'm working with these elements or how I'm picking it up and making all these changes quickly, then for that guys, I recommend check out the course because there I go a lot more in slower pace and I go through everything step by step explaining you. This is from a mindset of, let's say, assuming you're in an interview, this is how you're going to be quickly going ahead and showing them the changes and making sure you're making progress so that you're not stuck with this figuring out one element and taking like the entire interview just trying to figure out that element. So that's how you should be working when you're, let's say, in an interview process. Now finally, we're going to go ahead and verify that the text is updated. So we can just do await. And I can do, let's say, expect my updated subtotal. And then here is where so far we have been doing, let's say it should have text or it should equal to blah, 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 right? Maybe let's say I do it should equal to my device price. So that's device price. Now, by the way, the device price is not accessible right now to us because it's not part of this scope. Now, what I can do is create a new variable here called device price. Now this is going to be global. I can copy this, remove this from here. Now this device price is going to get accessible over here as part of my add to cart. Now I will have access to this over here as well. So that's good. So I'm saying expect my updated subtotal should equal, instead of should equal or to equal, I'm going to say it should not equal to the device price. So this is how you do negative assertions. So I'm saying, well, instead of verifying that it should equal to this, I'm saying, no, it should not equal because I've just updated the subtotal. So it should be changed to something else. Oh, sorry, I just updated the quantity. So it should be changed to something else. Let's run this to make sure whether this works. So to run this, we have to run the whole thing again because everything is kind of connected with each other. So it will add the item to the cart here. It should now go to cart. There you go. All right, now here it should go ahead and change the quantity. So it seems like that didn't happen, so something went wrong. Let's see what happened there. So it's saying element click intercepted, element select name quantity is probably it's not able to access because the click got intercepted. All right, so that means it was trying to click on quantity, but it got intercepted and it was not able to access that. And it's saying other element would receive the click, and it's actually telling you which element is receiving the click. So instead of quantity, it's saying some other element is actually receiving the click. And the element that it mentioned is right over here. And there's also an ID for that, which is this auto ID announce. And that's okay, because what's happening is maybe there's an element that's on top of that. So if we go back to our Chrome, and if I search for this, and since we already have item in the cart, let's just refresh. And I'm going to change this to, let's say 1, refresh here. And there you go. When we're trying to do a click on the quantity, it's saying this is the one that's receiving the click. And that's okay, because even if I click on this one, it's still clicking on the quantity. So I'm simply going to go ahead and just replace that with this ID. And this is good that we came across this error. And because most likely if you have similar issues, you just have to see which element it's clicking. And if it's fine to use that element, if it's not, then you do something else, maybe change the state of the application so that you're able to access the element that you want. In my case, the state is fine, so all I have to do is simply replace it to this one. All right, now let's run it again and to see whether it would work this time. And there you go. This time our test passed successfully, so that's perfect. Now let's just verify that if I change this to 2 equal, then it should not pass, it should actually fail, just to make sure that we are doing this correctly. And there you go, this time it failed. And if I just hover over here, you can notice it's saying that instead of expecting the device price, I'm getting this entire element back. Oh, I just realized I made a mistake here. So instead of this updated subtotal, the reason the previous test passed was because obviously this expected is not matching the received. See, that's one of the reasons you should always try to fail your test, because when you fail it, you know that your assertions are doing what it's supposed to. In my case, instead of adding in the text, I simply pasted the entire element. So it's obviously when I say the element should not match the text, it is never matching. So it's failing. So the assertion was passing because I was saying it should not be equal. But when I change it to equal, I'm able to see that, oops, I'm actually testing totally something different. So this should actually be .getText, because I want to make sure I get the text from that element, not just simply automate or not just simply take that element and verify it as a price. I hope that makes sense, because before I was simply just taking the entire element. Now I'm taking the text from that element. Now let's just make sure this works this time. So I'm going to run through this again. All right, so I ran this, and if you notice, the test actually passed, which is weird, right? Because I updated the quantity, so the test should not have passed. But if you notice, the result I got back is 1699.95. That means even after updated, the text is still the same. So why is that happening? Because we updated it right over here, we changed the quantity. Well, the most likely the reason for that is by the time this was changing, it went right away to the next one. So the DOM didn't really get loaded. So, it takes some time for the DOM's text to get updated. So I'm pretty sure if I change this to, let's say, await and add some kind of pause here, maybe let's just wait 1 second, right? And after that, we're going to try to get the text. This time our test should fail, and it should say that, oh, the updated price does not match the device price. And there you go. So this time, as you can see, my expected does not match the received. And that's what we want, right? Because we've changed the quantity, so that should not match whatever my expected was, which was the device price. So this was due to a timing issue. So we need to resolve this timing issue. Well, one way is this hard-coded pause, which is not a good way to do it. So I can remove that. And instead of doing this, let's say 2 equal, maybe I can use something like to have text, right? Because we have been using that. So I can say to have text. And what this will do is it will automatically wait until the text matches to what we want. So in my case, I'm going to do not to have text because we want it to get updated to a new text. So it will keep waiting until the text get updated. And this way, I don't have to do .getText, because whenever it will come to this line, it will first get the text for this and it will compare the text with this one. So the very first run, it's going to say that, oh, the text still matches, 1699 matches 1699 again. So it's going to poll for 100 seconds, or basically it will wait for 100 milliseconds, and then it will try again. Does it still match? If it still does, it's going to wait again. After 100 milliseconds, it will keep checking. So it will have this retry functionality and keep checking until the text gets updated or until it times out. So that's what we're going to implement with this logic. Let's run this to make sure this works. So this is, by the way, how expect assertions work. If you want to learn more about how they work, I have again covered this in my course, so you can go ahead and check it out over there. I will add the link for that in the description below for you guys to check it out. And there you go. This time my test passed successfully, and if I scroll up, you're going to notice I'm getting the right result back. Instead of 1699, I'm getting 3399 back. So that's good. That means my test is working as expected. Alright, so to quickly summarize, guys, we came across two main issues here. The first one was the element that we were picking up was not really the right one. So we were getting element click intercepted. So we had to go ahead and pick the element that it was suggesting us. So we just went with that because it worked in our case. In your case, it might not work because some other element is coming on top of your element. So you need to first close that and then be able to access your element. Now the next thing was the subtotal. So we were having the issue with the timing. So we resolved that by using WebdriverIO expect assertion, which is .toHaveText, and we use negative assertion by adding .not. We'll say, hey, keep doing polling until the text gets updated. With that, it's a wrap for this series, guys. We covered lots of different flows. We started off with setting up a project, writing basic text. We looked into how to, let's say, search for contact, verify the results, how to handle auto suggestions. And then we went through this entire cart flow from adding item to the cart, working with hidden elements, updating the cart quantity, and then handling, let's say, the weight, and how to get rid of hard-coded pause by implementing assertions such as expect assertions and so on. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this series. And if you want me to create similar series on other frameworks, or you want me to cover different logic with WebdriverIO, let me know in the comments below. I can go ahead and create those videos as well. And I know I went through this pretty quickly, but the point of this was to kind of show you that during an interview process, they might ask you some of these different questions. So you really need to be prepared and understand how to do this whenever you come across in an interview, or whether you come across in an actual job where you will be working as an automation engineer. Now, it's okay if you don't really know something, totally that's fine. Just tell that to your interviewer and they will understand, or you can ask them for some help. Plus, they will be guiding you throughout the way if you get stuck somewhere. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, let me know in the comments below. And at the same time, please make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel to keep supporting this channel further. As a final note, all the code that we covered in this series will be accessible to you guys. Simply go ahead and access the link in the description, and then you'll be asked to enter your email where you will get access to the entire code base. Now, if you want to deep dive into WebdriverIO as well as other courses as well, such as doing WebdriverIO with mobile automation using Appium, or maybe learn API automation with Typescript and so on, I have covered all of these things and more as part of my academy. So go to sdgtunicorns.com where you will take a look at all the courses that I have covered over there. Plus, you get direct support from me there as well whenever you get stuck during a learning experience. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one.